Hi, I'm Michael Weatherly.
And I'm Cote DiPaolo.
And this is
Off Duty.
And today, Season 3, Episode 17, Ravenous.
Yeah.
We're going to be exploring this episode.
Yeah, we've got a kind of a guest / friend to both of us. Her name is Rachel Good, and she did wardrobe for NCIS. For many years, she's still actually doing it.
And she did wardrobe before that for a show called Jag. Jag.
and you'd never know it because she's so damn delish.
The exciting thing about having Rachel join us is we're going to be able to, I think, go to a place that this podcast has not gone before. We're going to go deep. We're going to go into what, they say clothes makes the man, but makes the person, makes the human. That's the old saying, but the correct, current, and forevermore saying is, clothes are so important, and they are much more than any of you have any understanding of until you delve into this episode. Cote DiPaolo, should we introduce our guest?
Yes, we should. Well, for me, it's kind of an easy one because she's not only a dear, dear friend. We've gone through ups and downs in life and shared a lot of things. She knows a lot about me. I think a little too much. A lot more than she'd probably like. And she's a terrifically talented lady by the name of Rachel Good.
Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, let's bring her in here into our little world of excitement and fun. Rachel Good.
Welcome to Off Duty, an NCIS Rewatch podcast. This week on the show, we're talking Season 3, Episode 17, Ravenous. In a national park, a bear eats a part of the body of a murdered Navy petty officer. Gibbs and the company investigate. A female companion has disappeared. The gang deduce her identity. Ziva finds her, and Gibbs nails the killer.
Hi, Rach.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And I've never done this before, so watching you guys do the intro was thrilling. A little nerve-wracking, but
are you a little nervous?
I'm a little nervous. Oh yeah, just a ton of it.
Wait, I think this is going to make it all better. So to all of you guys who don't know, Michael was on the show long before I was on the show, and I joined Season 3, and one of the first people I ever met was Rachel Good. She's been doing this since, how old were you when you first started in wardrobe?
Jag, I think I was 29.
I mean, you were so young. You've been doing it forever and ever and ever, and you still look so beautiful. I can't believe it. What do you think? But I have one thing that I want to do because I know that it will just get you right in the mix, right in the mix of it all. So to all of you listening, I apologize beforehand. But every single day before going into work, Rachel would call me and I would pick up the phone and I would literally go, "Lovely lady." And that was the way we started our conversation. And it still happens today. So I want you to do one of those for me just before we... I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to put you on the spot.
No one wants to hear
give me
that.
a guttural share. Give me a guttural share one. Come on.
Lovely lady.
Oh, okay, you didn't go deep, but that was good.
I couldn't go deep with all this accoutrement.
Okay.
Please cut that. Thank you. I feel better now.
Cut anything.
I'm sweaty now. All right.
How about we start tackling some of the show with Rachel, with us?
I'd love to.
You want to? So
yeah,
we're going to make her a part of this, which, by the way, we never do with our guests. So we're going to do something that we call Flashback. It's time for a flashback. At the time of this episode's release, which was March 7th, 2006, a new species of shark, the white margin fish smooth hound, is discovered in Mexico's Sea of Cortez. Have you ever heard about this? I know
the Sea of Cortez.
But I could barely talk. Poland confirmed its first case of bird flu virus. This was 2006. That was a big deal, remember?
Wow, yeah.
Avian flu, sure.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember, and this is something very funny, and it will give you insight as to like the relationships that we build on this set. I went to South America at some point, and there was something called Tamiflu. Remember Tamiflu? which was a medicine that apparently used to and there was this whole thing going on like, oh my God, so many, you can get it and you can die. And I remember you could go to the pharmacy and you could get just not a lot because obviously everything was on shortage. And I remember going there and I think I got one for Rachel, one box for Rachel and one box for Michael. And I just got back and I was like, you need something to save your life. I was so excited that I had this antidote that I was I was going to save you guys.
That's why I married a doctor. I can get Tamiflu anytime I want now.
Oh God, you're so good. You see, you're smart. Reese Witherspoon and Philip Seymour Hoffman win Best Actress and Actor at the 78th Academy Awards for their respective roles in Walk the Line and Capote. Remember that?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
And do you remember her acceptance speech? Wasn't this the one where she was with her husband at the time and her husband actually presents her, and then at that point he talked about how she was paid more than he was? Wasn't that it was like a very kind of like a classic moment in sort of Oscar history where people sort of addressed the fact that one got paid more than the other and they were both at the time married. Anyway, it was a funny bit. Episode synopsis.
I love you in those glasses.
Half-eaten marine is found in the national park. Do you remember this in the show?
Yes.
Okay, so the episode is about that. It's about a bear. It's about a bear. A bear is the main suspect, but it turns out there's a serial killer. Tony and Ziva flirt with respective park rangers. Do you remember this? Because I actually had a really had a chuckle.
It's a big area to patrol.
Yeah, unless you like to exercise.
Well, as a matter of fact, I'd like to walk.
Our boss would like any records you have on deaths in the park.
Yes, we drove up into the Angeles National Forest to shoot this episode.
Yes, but you were doing something that was really funny.
I deny that. I did not do anything.
No. I mean, Tony DiNozzo was flirting with the park ranger girl, and I was flirting with with armpit hair woman, and I was flirting with the other one who turns out to be the killer, and but you do something in the squad room which is so funny, and we make the entire delivery of exposition about jealousy.
Yes.
And it's something that's not written, and we just do it. And, and it's funny because I clocked it, and it's very good because she's actually having a little bit of fun with it. He's not. He's full blown, 100% there, and he's not cool with it. And she's just kind of playing a little bit, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yes, that is absolutely one of those things that would happen where we would change the tone of a scene as written, because we would infuse it with our sort of what we felt the characters were doing. And then it would set all the guest stars would be like, what are they doing?
Right.
That's not the scene.
Yeah.
Why are they so crazy?
Yeah. Do you remember shooting this episode?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you do?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember the bear photos? I remember that day so
Oh, my
well.
God. Yeah,
the bear and the berries.
I remember shooting this episode too for personal reasons. For me, it was a tough one, but I'll leave it at that.
I will also tell you that a year later, I went to Australia for the Logies, and the clip that they played when I was in front of the Logies is like the Australian Emmys, right?
Oh, wow.
And I was a presenter and sort of co-hosting in a capacity.
Didn't you go there with your niece? With
Alex Breckenridge,
yes,
with Alexandra Breckenridge. But the clip that they showed was from this episode with the armpit hair in the squad room.
So I was thinking about this weekend and...
About trying camping?
I just remember I was with these two guys who were radio DJs in Australia at the time, Hamish and Andy, and I was getting ready to do an interview with them after they showed the clip. And while the clip was showing, they were like, your show's crazy. I thought you did some crime procedural thing. Why is your show so crazy? And I'm like,
because that's the show.
Because nobody realizes that NCIS is not a glum, dour, we sit and just the facts, ma'am kind of show. No. It's a comedy. What did somebody say? Somebody recently said, it was Jesse Stern that we were talking to, who said that MASH was a comedy set in a war, and we were doing a comedy set in a military drama, but we were doing a military drama as if it was a comedy.
Right.
And
Smart.
he had this great, it is the twist. If somebody's never seen those first, however many seasons, they can misunderstand what it is we've been up to, because it's not find the evidence, there are the clues. There's a strange Scrubs thing going on. We could have broken into song almost at any moment.
Yeah, it could have turned into Glee at any given.
Yeah, that's true.
Gibbs shoots the serial killer in the butt. Remember this?
Yes, I do. And I remember shooting that. That was at Disney Ranch, though. That was a different location.
That was a totally different location, yeah. What do you remember shooting about this episode? Any behind-the-scenes stuff?
I want to mention, can I say something about the underarm hair?
Oh.
So when you read the script, you're like, I don't even know how they wrote that. But when we got to actually having to figure out how to do that, first of all, the uniform was a rental. And anything that you rent, if you damage it, you pay 10 times the rental amount.
Oh, my God.
Like, what are we going to do? When you wear a tie with a uniform, you're wearing a long sleeve shirt. So when you talk about sometimes trying to maintain regulations, and then sometimes you have to break the rules for what's scripted, we're like, okay, we got to give her a short sleeve shirt. Well, when I cut the sleeves on a woman's shirt, you couldn't see the underarm hair. So when you watch that scene, you'll notice the armhole is much bigger, quickly realize better use a men's shirt. So when people write things, it's up to us to figure out how to get it done. And throughout the course of this episode, you'll notice the bare ravaged body. Of course, we had to do the clothes and ravage them and make them bloody. So everything that you see, including the background at the Jackrabbit Slim diner, all those people had to go through our department.
Slice of heaven.
Or not.
So it's not just dressing Cody and Michael and Mark and Sean and Polly and everyone. It's the entire show. And that means sometimes removing a sleeve for a hair gag, which involves makeup. So then it's talking to makeup about, okay, we got a bigger, birth here that you can see in. And if you notice her hair, and I remember them like discussing, like, should it be curled? Like, there was so much of it. It was just, and your look when it's revealed is just
but it's like a look of shock, and then also like there's like this like uncontainable laughter that happens, which is so
exactly.
funny. It's so like revealing of the character too. And
Totally.
I remember you shooting that, Michael, and having so much fun with that moment, which made it so much fun for me to watch. And now that I look back at that, I remember being there when you were shooting it, and I'm not even in the scene. I'm not even supposed to be there, which is so funny. I stayed to watch the scene only because it was such a funny scene, and then you kept on having so much fun that then I couldn't leave, and then I was just a spectator when I could have been in my trailer, like taking a nap, doing something. I was like, no, I'm gonna stay here. This is good.
You got to see the armpit hair, and so one of the final things I wanted to get into is the confusion, the chaos, the calamity of, we have Act 1. We do not have Act 2. We are shooting. It's Act 1.
Yeah.
And we shoot the second day of Act 2, of Act 1 tomorrow, and we don't know what we're shooting Wednesday. Say it's a Monday and we're shooting. And you also don't know if the person you're dressing in Act 1 is going to end up being the bad guy. Do we need to double that? Are there going to be stunts for that person?
Exactly.
Are there?
That's a good point.
So in that, we've talked a little bit about the chaos and the confusion, but that was kind of, Don sat down sometimes to rewrite a script, or if he was writing a script fresh, and he would just start, but we didn't know where he was going. So I just wonder, in your department, if Paul had any experience with that and was able to talk to you about that.
how did we prepare for that? There were times where we by the fourth act, we realized Ziva is stunt doubled. And then I'm running around Los Angeles trying to find pants that look the same or similar for a stunt person who may have been, bigger than she was. So again, I feel like not having Amazon then made our job so much more difficult. And it was hours crawling through the malls in every single store because you just never knew what you might come across. And that, especially for Polly, especially for Cody's clothes, trying to do, cargo pants were not in abundance. The first cargo pants you wore were military issue. And I just tried on a million pairs until we got one that looked pretty good. And then I think we altered them, on your body. So my point being that you guys are working, you're tired, you're, there really early. You don't know, you're trusting us to say, I'm going to prepare you for what's next. I would call you and say, oh, by the way, you're going to be in a bathing suit in 2 episodes. I kind of got word or
a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, or a Hawaiian shirt. Exactly. And I, to this day, I will still call the actors and say, heads up, looks like you're, doing this. And they're grateful. So I think the trust that you guys have in us and then the trust that we have in you, like, I want you to be happy and I want you to be comfortable. Those cement floors are hell on your feet and your legs 10 years in. And we soon, Sean Murray for a long time was like, I just want to be comfortable because my legs get sore. So he was wearing these Merrill shoes forever.
Very proby.
Yes,
very proby.
Very proby. Not our favorite shoes, but they're so comfortable. And then at the end of the day, you're like, well, the show is shot pretty high and tight. You're never going to see him.
I think they were consistent with the proby, though.
Yeah, but I mean, to be honest and not to call him out, but this past season, he wore them a few times because they're just comfortable and they're good at a crime scene.
By the way, if I were like behind the desk, I'd wear like loafers. I'd wear UGG boots. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be in the most comfortable.
Same with Michael. Same with Michael. And then you guys always knew. Yeah, where the camera's coming from.
You have to see the entire outfit, and you just, but if you're going to be there and you've got a couple of scenes where you sit down behind a desk.
Sometimes if you're doing coverage over somebody and they would have somebody, they want to put an apple box or quarter apple or half like a little bit of a riser so somebody could be taller, I would turn to Billy Webb and I'm like, are you doing that just because I'm a half inch too tall? And I would just take off my shoes and then I'd come down just a little bit. So I would just not be wearing shoes during the coverage, with somebody, and that would just even it out.
And that would even be eyeliner, right?
And by the way, like, it's so funny to even say that. But even that is like, I'm going to do something different. Like, I'm going to take off my shoes during the scene. And that became like grounding. A little nugget. That became like a little nugget for the day. Like, what did you do today, Michael, different? I took my shoes off for that scene.
Now, Rachel Good, can I just tell you, I started my NCIS adventure on JAG.
Right.
Because we did 2 episodes, Meltdown and Ice Queen, in what I believe was season 8
maybe
of JAG. Yeah. So when I came in to do what was my pilot episode, Mark Harmon, David McCallum, Polly Perrette, and I, and
Robin Lively, right?
I had just come from Australia. I had just come from playing Robert Wagner. Hello. Which is a little weird. We'll get into that later.
Yes.
How weird it is. But I had just gotten off a plane and I had to come straight into wardrobe without getting into it too much. You were not the person in charge of my wardrobe.
No.
At that time.
No.
Even though you were part of the JAG wardrobe team with Paul, who, may he rest in peace, was an extraordinary, beautiful human.
Right.
And your boss for quite some time. I came in and we were doing the wardrobe and they had a bunch of stuff. And I was like, no, I don't like that. And I went, and they were like, no. You don't have a choice. It's this. And I said, no. This is my pilot. Like, I got all Michael Weatherly about it. Yeah. And I was, all about DiNozzo. And to me, the wardrobe of DiNozzo was so specific and important to the thing. And I had this whole like outlook for the character and the guy and the hair and how I wanted him to be. And I just wanted to ask before we go into our further explorations. It reminds me of a later episode of NCIS where there was someone in the armory department who did not like DiNozzo because he was a little bit too into his clothes and his wardrobe and, well, his holster, for instance, was part of the problem. Was I a bit problematic when I came onto the show? I'm just wondering if you heard because I'm, in the Wayback Machine, I'm open to understanding that I could.
Rachel, I hope you know that this podcast, our number one rule is honesty is the best policy. So you can actually
you're allowed to say what you really thought.
Especially if Michael is actually asking for it, because it's a very rare occurrence that you go full out and you go, was I difficult?
No, in fact, at that time, watching the older shows, it's funny because I thought your voice wasn't coming through in those earlier shows. And it seems as though the boys were putting you in clothes that weren't necessarily the DiNozzo look that we have come to know and love. And in the very beginning, there were striped shirts. Now, granted, it was the early 2000s, but I feel like your recollection is that you were standing up, but I feel like at that time we were probably working from a higher direction, meaning you may have said you wanted something, but Don Belisario may have given other instructions at that time because he really was the captain of the ship. So you were never difficult. And as we all learned about the characters together, we were able to evolve your costumes. And we can talk about Cody in that respect. And I think you absolutely were finding your groove. Like, I completely think DiNozzo is suit, James Bond, tailored,
Right. But can I also point out, and I've mentioned this in a couple of pieces we've done before, and today I played golf and I was wearing a hat and I came right into this interview and I have hat head. But what I noticed in Ravenous is that I have hat head all over the beginning of this episode because I'm wearing a hat. But we played hat head. We played, like, when you're wearing a hat and you take it off, your hair doesn't look perfect. Right. But on Jag, when David James Elliott was coming into a room, he had his cover outside the room. But when he came in, he would just be holding his cover so that he could take it off and Carla Dean's hair would look perfect.
Exactly.
Like an American werewolf in London. And I'm remembering as I watched Ravenous and as I'm talking to you today, there was such a marked difference before we jump into the next thing. That transition from JAG to NCIS, I want you to talk a little bit about what the difference was in terms of military dress. And because when you were doing the Navy guys, they needed to be adherent to those codes, and it was called a cover.
Exactly.
But I wore a hat. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so just if you could expand on that a little bit, just briefly give us a little shakedown on that.
Well, coming from JAG, it was a full uniform show. It would be a rare occasion when they went into what we call civvies or civilian clothes. So we called it Don's Navy. I mean, we were making Navy whites. We were absolutely always, our goal has been to stay current with the regulations of the military. So working on JAG in that respect, we were hyper focused on the tailoring, the fit, the lines that a camera will draw on. When we got to your pilot, we also realized that aesthetically, the tailoring is important. The routine, the ritual, meaning for Gibbs, for example, being a former Marine, that white T-shirt came into play because as a Marine, you would wear that white T-shirt. So we're implementing some of the military aspects into his civilian wardrobe. And you came in and, I mean, so good looking. What do you do with this guy? You know? And so honestly, for a little while, I was like, try a hoodie.
Like,
try
good looking.
good looking. What do you do with this guy? Well, and so the guys dressing him, it looks like you had a suit and I think you had a suit and Ravenous, and then like maybe you went to a button front shirt, and then you kind of had a zip front sweater. So we were still kind of finding your look. And I think the tailoring and the fact that we had a 4-person tailor shop at that time is kind of the most visual takeover from JAG to NCIS.
What about David McCallum and Polly Perrette?
Very, very different. I mean, when I read the pilot and she was scripted as goth, I thought, you know, what is that? A dog collar and a black thermal? And so it allowed some creative kind of playtime in the tailor shop because stuff like that wasn't out there. For David McCallum, you know, he was a doctor, so it was scrubs. And then we realized, and this is where I think Paul taught me a really helpful thing that has carried me through my career. My job is to make you comfortable in clothing so you can do your job. So if you're futzing and pulling, you can't do your job. Do you know what I mean? If you're not comfortable in your clothing. So David McCallum, for example, real quickly, he was always a student. He started watching, or maybe he always noticed that doctors wear blue suits. So he eventually got to the point where he literally only wore a navy blue suit, sometimes a pinstripe suit, and he would then vacillate between basically a blue shirt, you know, and change the bow tie. So he got into a uniform. With Polly, we realized the longer we went on, kind of the shorter the skirt, the higher the ratings, which is crazy, you know, crazy, but true. And so each character, you know, for a long time, it bothered me that Gibbs' pants had like a quadruple break, like they pooled. But that was something that he brought in, I think maybe from the Westerns that he were, you know, I'm not exactly sure where he got that. But now, it's funny, 20 years later, that is absolutely the style. And at the time, it was like, we have a tailor shop and there's more than a double break, or his sleeve lengths would be long. And that was a personal choice on his part. So we would always work with you guys to try and, you know, find a place where you guys are comfortable so that you could do your job.
And Gibbs wanted to look off the rack, right? Gibbs wanted to look like not a guy who gave two hoots about what he was wearing.
Exactly.
He just grabbed whatever was there. Whereas Donoso was more somebody who was dressing for effect.
Right.
So like, what do you remember about Cote coming onto the show?
The first thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cote, but I think that you two had your screen test and then you came straight to wardrobe. And I somehow got a call from somebody that said, your chemistry was incredible. And in my mind, I feel like I spoke to Michael. I'm not sure if I did. We were electrified at the notion that this new girl was coming in and we didn't know a whole lot about it. So I might get a little blurb that she was Mossad and she was an agent and, you know, she'd just come kind of to the country, to America. So after your screen test, she came to a fitting and I had like everything from trench coats to berets to high heels to slacks to skirts, a million different things. And Cote looked and still looks incredible in everything.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure.
So we played dress up. And
did.
If I had the Polaroids for years and I'm sure I could dig them up somewhere, but everything, I'd be like, put this on, try this. And she'd put it on and strike a pose and I'd snap a Polaroid. It's like we together discovered. And as the episodes went on, we realized, oh, she's always got a knife on her, which brought in the cargo pants.
And notice, you know, it's really funny because I was tracking season 3.
Yes.
There's a couple of episodes where you've got me on like a heel, like a pump. And I realized that at some point, like the pump went away and then we did kind of like a boot that had a little bit of a heel. But that went away rather quickly because we realized the character's on her feet and she has to be readily available to jump to like fighting and all that stuff. And it was just not going to work.
Exactly. And we learned that together as the character was, developed. We realized, well, those skirts don't work. You look incredible in them. But what I always said to Cody is clothes for function. Like this is, it's not a fashion show, but you guys are agents and you got to be able to run. You can't have hoop earrings that, a perpetrator could pull out. You've got to have clothes for function. So having Cody come in, absolutely looked incredible and everything. In fact, her very first scene on set, she was in cargo pants, an old desert boot, and we were rehearsing, and Don Belisario called up to the costume department and said, I want to put her, remember, in a headscarf, in a wrap. And I was like, what? Like, I don't have anything that's going to look cool. Ran into the tailor shop, came out with a strip of muslin, and Cody on her first day on set bent her head over, wrapped it up, and you guys rolled.
Hi. I was just
Having phone sex?
It was that kind of trust. She looked at me, he's like, does this work? I was like, yes, like, I can't believe you just did that. Like, that was one of the most thrilling kind of pressure, stress-induced, like, to get a call from Don Belisario that he wanted something else and you guys were about to roll was so stressful. And do you know,
I think it also had to do with Cody's widow's peak.
100%. They didn't know what to do with the widow's peak.
Episode on the widow's peak, but I think that was one of the things, Rach, that gave us a connection from the get-go, is that we kind of rolled with it, and it's so true. You played dress up with me, like I was in many ways your little doll, and I'd go in there, and we'd just have so much fun. You'd be like, "Oh, try me dolls," and you'd throw something at me, and then I'd put it on, and then she'd start clicking away, and she was like, "Oh my God, that looks so good," and I remember having so much fun from the get-go, seeing like how we were going to create this character from a clothing standpoint together, and the things that were cool, the things that would work. Obviously, the first season, we knew that the skirts weren't going to go. And of course, if you needed to wear a skirt for something particular, you would. But then the pumps and the high heels and all that stuff wouldn't work. We played around with a little bit of that in season 3. And I think by season 4, season 5, season 6, it was pretty much determined that like the trench, the cargos, we went through a lot in that show too, I feel. From a personal standpoint, like there were, of course there was the inevitable discussion of wardrobe, which by the way, I was going to go back to one of the first questions I wanted to ask when you were talking about David McCallum and Polly Perrette and everyone else. What people don't know is that most characters, most actors on the show had these massive rooms, wardrobe rooms. Like I remember once you took me into Polly Perrette's, Abby Shuto, like wardrobe, closet. Can you describe a little of that? Because I think a lot of people don't understand how big of a closet these things were, really.
We would do 24 episodes a season. So that means a new script every 8 weekdays. So every week we're working on new costumes. So while you guys are shooting an episode, we are preparing the next episode. So what that means is each character has a closet, and in that closet, we dress from head to toe. So from bras and underwear down to socks and shoes. And what we would do is you would be on set filming, and don't forget, I would have to call and say, can you please come up to fit for the next episode? You guys would not have read the episode yet. So I would have read it and given you a little, debriefing on what's going on. So in that closet that all of you had, in trying to create kind of real characters, we would want to reuse pieces. And so you're right, Cody. Your first season, we're kind of all over the place. I saw button-down shirts. I saw printed T-shirts. I saw skirts. I saw high heels. As the network gave notes for a while, it was like more color on Cody, more color on Cody. Let's try different things. I would go back to the closet and try and pull clothes that would work for what was scripted. We always have to shop. And back then there was no Amazon. So if, it was July and they wanted you in leg warmers, it was run around Los Angeles looking for leg warmers, right?
Or would you go into the closets of JAG and everything else? Because one of the
have that too, yes.
Right, you sort of have a back stock, because I can remember back in the 90s doing movies and TV shows, and I would be wearing a piece of clothing that it would say inside the label another actor from another show
all the time.
And
called
sometimes
our stock room. Yeah.
And sometimes I would be doing a scene with somebody in season 9 and I'd look at their suit and I'd say, I remember that suit. Because these things would get recycled. And so it is, there's a little Easter egg for some of the fans that watch the show. And it's not necessarily out of cheapness, but it's also out of like, hey, we only have like 24 hours to put together.
Literally.
Don suddenly says, I want a room full of CIA agents.
Exactly.
And you're like, how do I put all these people? Now, before we go back into it, when you do have ND background or you have maybe day players or something, do they wear their own clothes sometimes, or are you fitting them all?
It depends on the scene. If we are in Afghanistan and we need, local looking people, we're definitely fitting them. If we are in a bar in Virginia, maybe they're wearing their own clothes. But we have a dedicated trailer that is stocked for background actors. We have a huge warehouse stocked with clothing separate than your principal actors' closets that we dress guest stars from. So if you're a guest star on the show, I am embarrassed to say this, Michael, but we still have so many beautiful Brooks Brothers suits of yours that, of course, if we get that size, sometimes we'll pull and say, here's a beautiful suit, and I will be the first to say that I have pulled out little teeny tiny little cheat sheets of dialogue from inside pockets.
Wait, I used to call them origami.
Little origami.
You would fold them up perfectly.
Fold them so tiny.
Yeah, and they were tiny.
And then highlight them.
Yeah, and then you would highlight them, and you always knew they were Cherise. They were sometimes they were triangle, sometimes they were rectangle, whatever they were. But he would have them in his palm. I have no idea how you read them. Maybe because you were much younger or something.
Because we were young and didn't wear glasses.
Yeah, and he would be like running around, whatever, and all of a sudden you'd catch Michael just kind of corner of the eye, just kind of pop something from like the pocket, and then I'd be like, "What? Oh my God, that's what he's doing!" So I think people found those scattered around the set and in, old pair of pants and suits for years to come.
They absolutely still do.
Little nuggets of Weatherly.
I mean, there's Sasha Alexander clothes. There's Lauren Hawley clothes. Like everybody. Jamie Lee Curtis. I have her beautiful suits. And so I can reuse, that. It's amazing to be on a show, this show, we're going into season 22. That is unheard of. So even now at season 22, I'm praying that congratulations, by the way, on NCIS, Tony and Ziva. It's such, I've been a fan from the beginning, and I thank you, Michael, for always keeping the dream alive that this would actually happen. And here it is. I mean, I bug you two about it all the time. So I think it's going to be interesting now to see if you two, again, fall right back into your roles. And you're like, okay, we're Michael and Cote. And then it's like getting on a bike. I can hardly wait to watch. It's going
to be a lot of fun. And I'm curious to ask you this. So one of the things that really happened when Lauren Hawley came in and Cote DePablo came in, and the show was, we were a TV show. We were a spinoff of JAG. We were on CBS Tuesday night at 8. We were doing our job. But we weren't in syndication yet in season 3. We were not in, we weren't on USA Network yet. There was no Netflix.
No.
But the show did start, like, if you were out with somebody in 2006 and they said, what do you do for a living? And you said, oh, I do wardrobe on NCIS. They would say, what's that?
Right.
I mean,
they
most
say
people.
CSI.
So as time kind of moved on, and suddenly the show did start to gain its own kind of momentum, and it was undeniably successful with the spinoff of NCIS LA and then NCIS New Orleans. now it's, someone will say to me, what do you do for a living? And I say, I'm an actor. And they're like, oh, anything I would know? And I say, well, I did a show called NCIS. And they're like, oh, I love NCIS. Who were you on NCIS?
No,
and
don't.
Yeah. And I'll say, well, I was DiNozzo. And they're like, with LL Cool J? And I'm like, no, that's NCIS LA. And they go, oh, or they say, no, I love the one in New Orleans. Did you have to live there? I'm like, no, that's not the one that I was on. Because the world has become so big. There's over 1,000 episodes of this franchise now. And so who would have thunk it back when we were shooting, the Bears and the Berries of Ravenous?
Oh my God,
literally.
what a funny episode. That whole scene between you and the ranger with the armpit hair. Remember how much we laughed? I wasn't even supposed to be there. And I remember just sitting across from you because I was just enjoying this so much. And I couldn't, and I couldn't, watching you trying to keep it together. And by the way, kudos to her because she was outstanding. She never once broke. Outstanding. And you were just so funny. I mean, that entire thing. And, I'm married. Well, not really. I'm married. That entire bit is just so good. It's just so good. It's like you at the,
At that, the Porky Swine.
The Porky Swine.
I'm married.
Then why'd you ask for my number?
She's dead. It was a pottery accident. Kiln overheated or something.
Did you, Rachel, at some point notice the sort of tectonic shift where the show kind of became a show where if you're shopping for the show, people are like, oh,
yes,
you're shopping for NCIS, as opposed to, I'm sorry, we're closed and we can't open, the store fee.
And I may be wrong, but I think we maybe made it to number 1, like season 7.
No, season 4.
Oh, it's season 4?
Season 4 was the first time we hit it on a weekly.
Okay.
But in terms of a seasonal number 1, it was later. But the first time we were ever number 1 for the week was in the winter of season 4.
I was in Costa Rica when we got that email, and it was like an email because it was a big deal. And I remember being like at a little tiki bar in Costa Rica and all of a sudden being like, what?
No
like it
way.
was just crazy.
But the important thing to remember about that week, and if those Google friendly people that want to go out there in their time machines and go back and try and find this, if you're particularly interested in this, I, for one, find it totally fascinating because the blurb said champagne corks must be popping at CBS today because NCIS, the little engine that could, was the number 1 show of the week. However, that's because this wasn't on and that wasn't on and it didn't have competition. And they were like, good for you. Very lucky. You'll never do it again. It was like the nerdy kid in right field catching a fly ball. And you're like, oh, good for you. We're so you'll never catch another one. But
yeah, I remember being like, oh, cool. I'll celebrate this because it may never happen again. And I'm cool with it. I like that. I like doing the job and I'm just so blessed to get paid for what I love to do. Yeah. So I was just like, it was just kind of, and by the way, what a great way to sort of accept that win in a way, to just kind of go, oh, fantastic. Well, good. I mean, there's only one place to go
an underdog.
Totally.
We were an underdog all the way. And I agree with you, Cody, so much. Like being part of an underdog it's so satisfying when you get to be Rachel Good, season 22, head of a department of a gigantic show with a legacy that it's not like you came in season 19.
Right.
Like you have seen the whole, you were there for the Genesis.
Yep.
And you remember Paul.
Yep.
And who was a mentor to you and showed you a lot of the stuff. You were there for all the crazy Belisario years.
Yeah. I mean, she was there while people were going in, people were going out. We were in, then we were out. The new people coming in. We're talking about actors. We're talking about, I mean, you've seen it all. You've seen that set go through many changes.
I wanted to also touch on this because I was thinking today on the golf course. Hi there.
Hi there.
I'm wearing one of those William Murray golf shirts right now.
Oh my God. It's so good.
Which is
it's so good.
I love the Bill Murray line. But you know, the idea of, so if you have a scene and it's Saturday morning, but the team's been called in. So Tony's in his sweatshirt and Ziva's come in from the gym, and but we've been called in because there's a dead Marine somewhere. They petty officer in whatever the park is, right? Rock Creek Park. And even Gibbs might be coming in from his basement dressed in sweatpants or so. He was at the gym or whatever.
Yeah.
That you could never, you had to dress the people for the reality of the day, but you never wanted to dress them in anticipation of what was going to happen in the script.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if you knew that Ziva was going to have a fight sequence, you didn't want to dress her in something that was going to look like like you could see her and be like, oh, there's going to be a fight sequence. Because look at, she's wearing that
got
outfit.
long sleeves on. Yeah.
She's in her superhero outfit.
But you are reading that script and breaking it down, and you're almost coming at it from an actor's point of view in a way, or a writer's point of view. You're an extension of that storytelling. Like, how does that?
Good question. We would get the scripts sometimes at night, sometimes in the morning. So you guys are down on set working on a script. And then we would get what they call the writer's draft, or sometimes even an outline. And all of a sudden it's like, Tony and Ziva are undercover and they're going, to a black tie event. So Abby, it's her birthday. Ducky goes to the opera, Lauren. I would read on paper, the paper script, and take notes. So on all the actors, here she gets shot. So we're going to need doubles for that. Here we're going to need something fancy. So while you guys are filming, we're scouting and preparing for the next episode that you guys haven't even read yet. So when Cote would say I would kind of act it out, she had no idea what the script was about, because you guys don't get the script until it's a shooting script. I have read the writers. So I would kind of say, okay, you're going to pull a knife out of here. So that's why the cargo pants. And then this boot, you have to cross the top of a train. So I'm going to put you in this. Or you're going on the ship and you need a rubber sole. Or, whatever scenario, I could look ahead, hopefully, and try and anticipate what Cote might feel comfortable in and what would, work, for example, for sound. Like, even talking about being in an evening gown, trying to figure out where to put the microphone. As I mic'd myself for these things today, I thought of you guys. It's like we always were hoping for some tiny little insert of a microphone that didn't have to go through your pant leg, down to your boot, wrap around your ankle, and come back around the other side, or you and your ties, or whatever it is. So I knew the script inside and out. And that's why then watching the show and seeing what you guys do is what really made me realize it has nothing to do with the clothes. The best compliment is that nobody notices the clothes, and it's actually you guys. And so the chemistry that Sean Murray, that all of you, Brian Dietzen, that all of you have together as an ensemble, and then separately, individually paired up, and all the guest stars that came through. And we've had so many incredibly famous guest stars, and to dress them.
Talk about dressing Robert Wagner.
Well, he's just one of my favorite people. And we share the same.
You just went like a little red on the face, and you're like, I really love him.
I really love him. We share the same birthday, and I'm so proud to say that he calls me every year on my birthday, which in my heart of hearts, I would never in a million years imagine would even be something that would happen. But that is a legacy to the friendships that we have developed on this show.
Did they have specifically to the real, the people who have worked and worked and worked and worked, whether it's somebody like Peter Coyote or Jaime Lee Curtis or Robert
Maria
Wagner
Bello.
or Bob Newhart or Maria Bello or Lily Tomlin did they ever show you something, or did you get like a little aha tip from somebody about, oh, that's such a good idea.
Jaime Lee Curtis, incredible body. And she absolutely knows what works on her. And so whether it was adjusting possibly a pencil skirt to hit at just the right part of her knee, I have a good eye and I can look and I can see. And, we do little tricks like slim the arm on the jacket or the shirt because it looks good on TV. She showed me a nude heel. We know makes your leg longer, but she said it cannot be shiny. And she had me matte spray a nude pump. And so it just sort of disappeared.
Oh, how cool.
And I thought, while I was spraying it, I thought, what am I doing? Is this going to work? And then I saw it on camera and I thought, brilliant. Like, she is so smart.
She's been around the business
forever. And she is the person who taught me, if you find something that you like in your life, whether it's tennis shoes or a t-shirt, and you really like it, buy multiples of it, because it's guaranteed, like a lipstick, it's going to be discontinued. Yeah. So one day I complimented her on, I think, a yoga jacket and pants. And I was like, God, they just fit her beautifully. It's like you guys kind of come to work in kind of casual clothes because you're going to put on, your costumes. She would come in and even her leggings and jacket were gorgeous. And I told her so. And the next day, on my desk was the jacket and the pants. And I was like, how did you do that?
Yeah. Can we talk about that? Because it's something, it's something that, look, you get to work with people intimately sometimes when you're acting and sometimes you have these really great kind of deep conversations, which then people go their separate ways and then you may never see them again, but you have that instant, you connected in that instant. She was one of those rare people who was not only very open on set, I mean, she came from this incredible background, highly successful person, but also very grounded and such a generous human being. I remember when she left that set, everyone loved her. And not only that, but she gave everyone these almonds. Remember the almonds? Like, yes. I will forever hate her and love her for them because I think I ate everyone's almonds. I was like, oh, do you by any chance have any of those Jaime Lee Curtis almonds? I just kept going around and being like, I just love them so much. They were just so delicious. And she made a point to make a little baggie for every single person there. Yeah. It was like, let me just give you a little nugget of my appreciation. And it's a personal detail. It's a personal thing. Yes. And,
and she came she came into the hair and makeup trailer one morning early, as you do at, 6:15 or whatever in the morning. And with this energy. And she was like, okay, everybody, hold on. How do we put music on in this trailer? Yeah. And, we didn't really have a thing, but Joe Haley figured out how to, hook up her phone so that we could all listen to this song that she wanted to play for us. Oh. And it was Gautier's Somebody That I Used to Know.
No.
And it had just come out.
I thought you showed us that song.
You showed me that song in an elevator. Yeah. And you were like, Cote, I really need to show you this. And I was like, okay. And I was like, what is this, Shelly?
I completely attribute that song to Michael as well. What are you trying to tell me?
Well, I tip my hat to Jaime Lee Curtis because she not only did she do all these wonderful things, but she also was that generosity of spirit. And there's something really important there. That changed the trailer in the morning. We'd all been working hard and it was maybe day 6 of episode 15 and you're in the dirge and everyone's, it's February or whatever.
You're going on your third cup of coffee. You're like, rescue me.
and she was able to elevate an experience for everybody and bring everybody sort of together on the same team. I thought she was such an extraordinary. Well, I just remember coming into my wardrobe and looking, and I had a conversation with Rachel that I'd maybe put on a couple of pounds over the vacation or something happened. And there was like a Spanx kind of sweatshirt or whatever, like tank top.
So sorry.
and I was like, oh, I should try that on. And so I put it on and it was super tight. And I was like, it's
terrible.
And it was kind of my William Shatner, like season 3 of Star Trek.
Yes.
And I put it on.
How much I love you. This is the reason why I love you. Because you keep it so real. Like all of a sudden, Michael comes in after like a vacation and go like, honey, can you give me a tank top that's just gonna kind of like spanks me?
Suck everything in.
Can it suck me in? But the problem, and I didn't realize, is that it was so tight that after about 90 minutes on set, I had to take a poo so badly because it had constricted my body. And I was like, I have to go to the bathroom. And I never had to go to the bathroom. Because one of the little secrets of show business is you get all that done before you go to work.
You're like,
so that you don't
do that. You don't do that.
You don't do that. You don't go to the bathroom while you're working.
And then your body starts shutting down and people wonder like, what happened to her?
But it was so tight. And I just kind of was so aware that I was constricting all my abs and my muscles and everything that anything in my intestines needed to be evacuated probably within 90 seconds. And I just turned to Paul, the first AD, and I was like, Paul, I'm going to poo now. And he was like, ha, ha, ha. He thought I was being like funny, Michael. And I'm like, no. Like and I sprinted back to my trailer because I was sitting there. I'm like, gosh, what caused this? It was the Spanx. It was the Spanx.
As he's sweating profusely.
Wait. It's very rare that I am surprised by a story because I had not heard this one. This one's one of the ones you kept.
I held it for
golden nugget only for the podcast.
Only for the Rachel Good
I knew
podcast.
Everything about you, like, nope. This is brand new. This is brand new to me. A Spanx, what do you call tank top that actually disintegrated you, quite literally.
We probably cut you out of it or pulled it over your head too. I have
probably
some
did
sort
have
of
to,
memory like that.
Yeah, I couldn't get it off.
I exactly. I feel like.
Wait 1 second. I need a visual.
They had to cut me out of it.
Rachel, I was like, and did Rachel actually physically go to your trailer and get that thing off?
Probably.
It was the jaws of life.
The jaws of life. Oh my God! This is why it's so good. This is why it's so good,
and it's why it's so good. You look so good, Michael. Michael and Cote. We don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You guys look so good.
He's just a boy,
and a Spanx.
He had to poo. You have to know, you would too, if you wore the Spanx. Okay, sorry. That's my little Spanx. Sorry, it always breaks down into a song at some point.
That was such a good story. Game time.
Let's do game time with Rachel Good.
With Rachel Good, most dangerous animal. In this episode, it first seems like a Marine was eaten by a bear, which would make him extremely unlucky. But there's only one fatal bear attack in North America per year, on average. How many fatal encounters are caused by the following animals in North America per year on average? So, first question, spiders. How many fatal attacks? Spiders, North America. Come on now. Now, Rachel, you know this.
Wait, we don't get an ABC.
Hundreds?
We don't get.
Yeah.
No, we get nothing. We get nothing. We get nothing. How many, like, just say, like, if there's one bear attack, how many do you think it's? So I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say 15.
I think it's like 100.
Yeah, maybe more because, you know, the black widow and then there's the brown
and
recluse.
There's children.
Brown recluse.
Yeah. How many?
What's the answer?
What's the answer?
Oh, 7.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. I know shark attacks coming up. So let's go.
Okay, let's go shark.
So cows.
7.
How about cows?
7.
What? Cows?
Cherie cows.
You mean how many people?
Fatal
Wait, you mean
attacks by cows in North America?
Mad cows?
0.
I'm going to go with 4.
I'll take 2. Meet you in the middle.
Okay, how many? 20?
Whiting?
Are you telling me that cows are 5 times more dangerous than spiders?
Basically. How's that for you? Alligators. How about alligators, Cherie?
Ooh.
That's good.
Ooh, I think 20.
I feel like there was just one the other day, maybe in Florida. Let's go with, I don't know.
Give me a number.
15.
Okay, I'm going to go for 6.
Wow.
0
because I knew
to
they
1.
were low. I knew they were low. Okay, this one's going to be a good one.
Okay.
This one's going to be a good one. Mountain lions. I'm going to go for 2. I'm going to say 2, maybe 1.
Me too.
I'm going to go 3. I got to go the over.
Okay, fine.
Take the over.
Oh my God.
Wow.
The answer is 0 to 1 every 5 years.
Crazy.
Mountain lions?
How about deer?
My gosh. Well, deer jump in front of cars and people get killed in that. I would say, I mean, there's so many deer around here. I would say deer have got to be, that's got to be like 25.
How about you, Rach? Come on now. You look lost.
I know. Because he got me with the car. So yeah, I'll go a dozen.
Split it in the middle between you two. I'm going to go 17. Why not?
All right. How many deer are responsible for deaths or kill people every year in the United States of America?
What?
200.
Whoa.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Well, I'm glad I won one.
Yeah, you won
did.
one.
That was terrible. New game.
Multiply that by 10. Bonus question. What's the last animal you would want to encounter and why?
Okay. Cody DePablo, what's the last animal you'd want to encounter and why?
Oh, God. I have a few, actually, but probably a bear. Yeah, because if I've read a lot about, the fact that they're so big and they're so, there's very little that you can do, really. Like if you're underwater, I've read, if you have the unfortunate thing coming face to face with a shark or something like that, you could try punching them on the nose. Maybe that'll work if you've got the guts to actually face them. But I don't even know if I would,
With a bear, do you climb a tree or play dead?
No, I remember with Mark Harmon, we used to have this conversation and he used to say things like, hey, Coach, you've got to come up to this place with me, whatever. And I was like, I'm afraid of bears. And he goes, oh God. And he goes, well, what's that? What would you do by any chance if you ran across a bear? And I was like, I don't know. What do you do? And he goes, you kiss your ass goodbye. And I was like, Mark, that is so awful. Like, and you really think that's I was like, that's awful. That's just awful. But I hear you just supposed to be quietly supposed to retrieve and just kind of not draw any attention to yourself and just kind of like quietly, But then again, I could be wrong. I don't know. I would not like to be in that kind of situation. How about you, Michael? You look so sad for some reason.
Well, no, I'm just thinking about, I have so many answers. I was going to say an angry human being would be the animal I'd be the most afraid of.
Probably, by the way, you're right about that.
If I were in Africa and there was a giant lion, I wouldn't want to meet a lion one-on-one in some little Serengeti plain thing. A hungry lion, I'm not getting away from that guy. No. And I'm not beating that guy up. No. I feel like I could talk to a bear. I'd be like, hey, come on. So what about you, Rach?
I guess a shark. I mean, I just stick my legs dangling off a surfboard and a shark grabs it.
Spoken like a California girl. She's like just dangling.
Dangling. Just that. Yes, or scuba diving and you just hear like you're breathing and then out comes a shark. I think that would be so scary.
My Lord.
Oh, this is such a crazy episode of this podcast.
We've hit all the topics.
All of them.
Have we talked about clothing? I don't even know.
Yes, are you kidding me? We've discussed it at length. Now I'm gonna take you into something which we've never done actually with a guest. Fan questions. Cherie, are you ready?
Let's do it.
Oh, fan questions. Jim from Scottsdale, Arizona. Bear with me here. Ha! See what happened? See what happened there? Who made the bear scat for this episode, and what was their official job title description? Thanks.
I believe that would be props.
That would be prop master. Probably George Tours at the time.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Rachel from New Jersey. Jersey City, actually, New Jersey. Was Jack Rabbit Slims in the episode a real place or a set?
It was a set.
It was a set. Of course it was. Nico from Boulder, Colorado. I like your name, Nico. Have you ever been scared to shoot a scene? Oh, yeah. Okay, that's a good question. And I guess the answer for that is sure. Are you kidding me? I'm not sure which one, though. But sure.
What about your final kiss scene when you guys left? Were you afraid for that?
I'm fighting for you, Ziva.
I know. Just, it was so heavy?
No, it wasn't.
Out of the olive?
No, it was, it wasn't scary. It was sad.
Not scary, but it means so much.
It was sad. And I remember there was something so sad about that. And by the way, we could do an entire episode just on that episode. But but I remember, Michael, you were like, hey, do you want something? And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he goes, how about like just a little, like no, I asked you, I said, Michael, do you by any chance have something like, I just want to make it like a celebration, but also because we were like on the last take, like, do you have like a little wine or something that we could like toast? And you said, I think I have like a little tequila. And I was like, can I have a little tequila? And I think I had like a shot of tequila. And you were like, I'm okay. I'm not going to do it, but you can do it. And I was like, I think I'm going to do this because I've never done this working. I've never, ever drank on set, ever. It was my last scene. And I wanted to just have that moment as a celebration. And I remember you gave me a little glass of tequila. And there's this, I don't want to start crying, but there's this great shot of you and I walking, I believe, to your trailer. And we were like, I think I was just like kind of like putting my head on your shoulder or maybe holding your hand. And it's just like a really sweet picture of both of us, like two friends kind of walking together. And there was like the sun kind of setting and it was the afternoon. It was right before we actually shot the scene. And, yeah, I remember that day very clearly, and lots of things were said that were really quite beautiful, and one day we will maybe possibly discuss.
That was an amazing day.
Not today. Rules. Gibbs rule of the day, number 12, never date a coworker. Your thoughts on this rule?
Rachel?
Never date a coworker. Honestly, it's probably Rachel.
This is
Haven't we all done it? Don't date a coworker. I'm like, it's like, don't. What's that bear?
I say don't unless you must. Because life is too short, and then love is love is a real thing. And unless you must, don't. But if you must, then enjoy.
Then enjoy, right. It makes work more complicated.
Oh, sure.
It does.
Are you kidding me? No doubt about that. Next week, as we look ahead to next week's episode, don't forget that you can watch all of these with us on Paramount Plus, and that you can catch new episodes of NCIS on CBS. Next week on Off Duty, the teenage son of a Marine major arrives to school with a bomb strapped to his body. Oh my God. This is actually a really good episode. This teen takes his classroom hostage with one simple demand: bring his mother to the classroom before sunset. But the investigation takes a turn when the teen discovers that she's dead, having seemingly drowned in a boating accident the year before. They begin to suspect that someone else might be manipulating the youngster. Season 3, episode 18, Bait. Foof.
Rachel Good, it's been so good being with you. And I'm a little sad that our little podcast has come to an end.
Me too.
This was a really
I know that
good one. Are you
our
still
friendship
nervous?
goes on.
No, I can. You guys, I'm a fan first. I'm embarrassed to say, I guess, but I could talk about this stuff all day long. It's so exciting. Again, I just want to tell you, thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me along the way. I can't wait to watch. You guys in Europe. I love where we're all at in our lives as happy and healthy adults and parents. Like, who knew 20 years ago we'd all be parents? And it's really remarkable to get to follow your success and to truly be friends with both of you, and to have your support in my life through, death and birth and all the stuff in between. So I cannot thank you enough for trusting me to come and, chit chat a little bit about something that I love, and clearly you guys love it too. And it's why I could continue talking all afternoon. So thank you so much.
Love you, Rachel Good.
I love you both so much, and you two look so beautiful. How do you not age? What's the secret? I can hardly wait. A ring light. All right. Thank you. I
love you, Rachel Good in the Hood, and in the immortal words of every single conversation we always have, love you, love your work.
Love you, love your work. Mwah. Love you guys so much.
Hi, my name's Michael Weatherly.
And I'm Cote. And this is
Off Duty. Today, Cote de Pablo, we're talking season 3, episode 18.
Bait.
I remember shooting this episode very clearly. Yeah. Isn't it funny?
Wait, do you remember this? Because I brought this, I saw it and I just died laughing. This.
We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about
it's just
many things.
The little hand that Harmon had, and we laughed about it. And I think
for the
years,
next 8 years, this meant something.
We did this. This meant something.
Welcome to Off Duty, an NCIS rewatch podcast. Today on the show, season 3, episode 18, Bait. The team must stop a student holding 6 classmates hostage from detonating a bomb. I have a lot to say about this episode, about how, McGee's squeaky shoes. New shoes.
McGee's squeaky shoes were so good.
DiNozzo trying to sort of be a team leader, seeking his boss's approval and his co-workers' approval. Ziva thinking that she's all like undercover, sly, secret agent girl. But the teenage terrorist guy, who's not even a terrorist, he's just a kid who's being blackmailed. He's not even a pro, and he sees you out the window with your camera.
With my camera. No, it's epic. I said the same thing. I was like, and by the way, like she's telling McGee, like, you need to stand back because of the shoes. Like, your shoes are making too much noise. And then all of a sudden I'm watching this and I'm going, oh my God.
I know. But see, I lean into that a little bit because I saw some very interesting performance things happening. I thought Mark Harmon was genius. I thought Polly Perrette was genius. Can't say as much for myself, but I am excited.
I thought you were really good. Like, you were in that kind of like quiet, in control mode that you go into very seldomly.
WWGD.
Is that a weapons acronym?
Advise team leader. No. It stands for what would Gibbs do?
But I loved it. I was watching and I was like, oh, look at that. That's a different version of the Cherie I know. Actually, of the Tony DiNozzo I know, because I've seen Michael do that, but I haven't, the Tony DiNozzo of it all was...
Well, we are going to talk about all of that and more a little bit later, and I am excited to discuss it. But right now, I want to talk about something we do on this little podcast of ours. Just this tiny little podcast we make called Off Duty. And this is called Flashback. Now, at this time, and there's a very interesting thing in this flashback, these 4 little bullet points. An attempted coup d'etat against Chadian President Idris Deby was foiled. Chad, the country of Chad, they tried to have a coup, and it was foiled. That, even when it happened, was not on my radar, but now I'm glad to know about it 18 years later.
I think you and I were like deep into making TV, so we missed a lot of like world events that were going on because we were too busy trying to get another take.
Yes, but
which, by the way, doesn't make me like proud of my existence. I'm not like,
at
wow,
all.
I just,
But we did have somebody in the camera department named Chad.
We did, and he's
We
the best.
still do. I think he's still there. Chad and Kim, still there. Matt LeBlanc and wife Melissa announced they were separating after only 3 years of marriage. And I have met the Matt LeBlanc in real life. He wouldn't remember it, but I thought he was a fine fellow.
I bet he was. He's always seemed like a really nice guy.
I've met, of the friends, I met the late Matt Perry, and funny. I thought he was a really funny guy. And I have met the Courtney Cox because her parents were friends with my Uncle Bob and Aunt Marianne down in Birmingham, Alabama. And the Courtney Cox did a show with my niece, Alex Breckenridge, the star of Virgin River. She will come up later in this conversation. And then Jennifer Aniston, I was on a show called Jessie that was on right after Friends. and it was with Christina Applegate. And so I got to meet a whole bunch of those friendly friends. And Jennifer Aniston was completely awesome.
And they were all really friendly from what I hear, yeah.
Super awesome. All of them.
Super nice people. Friendly.
The next thing I'm going to tell you is that She's the Man and V for Vendetta came out in the movie theaters
Remember
this
V
week.
for Vendetta? That was such a good movie.
Yes, but do you know why She's the Man is important?
Why?
Because my niece, Alexandra Breckenridge, star of Virgin River, was in She's the Man.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Well, she's also a very nice lady.
Yes, and it was one of those movies, like 10 Things I Hate About You, or I don't know, where they were just like clueless or whatever. They were taking either old stories or Shakespearean stories, like The Twelfth Night or whatever, and turning it into like a teen drama. And that is what She's the Man was all about, because it's a woman who dresses up like a man. James Blunt with his single, You're Beautiful. And I remember singing that to you when we were shooting.
Really?
Not really, but I would have. I think I would have.
I was like, wow, I don't remember this memory. I think I would have definitely tracked it, but
this became the first, James Blunt became the first British artist in 2006 to top the U.S. Billboard Top 100, Hot 100, since Elton John's Candle in the Wind in 1997.
Oh, that was such a beautiful.
When the Princess Diana
Lady
died.
Di.
Yeah. Now, Candle in the Wind didn't actually get released in 1997. It was first released back in the 1970s on Yellow Brick Road. I'm going to give you an episode synopsis.
Please do.
And if you want to jump in at any point, please feel free. NCIS are called in when the teenage son of a Marine major arrives in school with a bomb strapped to his body and one simple demand: bring his mother to the classroom before sunset. But the investigation takes a turn when the team discovers that she's dead, having seemingly drowned in a boating accident the year before, and they soon begin to suspect that someone else is manipulating the youngster, and it turns out that's true, and then it turns out his mom is alive.
His mom is alive, and that's my favorite part of the episode. And how did that happen? I'm not sure. But at the end, we do see, this is my favorite, the Gibbs hand.
Cody DePablo, let's dissect this episode, Bait, a little bit. What are your salient memories of this episode?
Oh, I just remember the Gibbs thing. I laughed out loud, when he did the little thing with the hand, little yes thing.
Puppet? Yes. Puppet.
That became like our little inside joke. And I remember doing that to Mark, and Mark being like, what are you doing, Coates? Like he just didn't get why we thought it was so funny. And I don't think it was really that funny. I just think, I don't know. It just was what it was. We had a lot of those moments. They were like survival moments.
I remember
where we
the
just
school.
needed to laugh.
I remember the school. I remember shooting at that school.
I remember that too.
Yep. And I also remember, okay, no, this is a weird thing. Hat on, hat off. Hat on, hat off. Hat on, hat off. So I had my hat on half the time because Terrence O'Hara was directing. And if you were going to be in the combat zone, walking down the hallway or going to the thing or coming out of the MCRT truck or whatever, you had to wear the hat, right? But if I'm interviewing the lady or whatever, and Billy Webb would be like, is there any way he can not wear the hat? We can't see his eyes because the light,
I found Cody's father. He was at a conference in Washington, D.C. MPs are escorting him now. Whew, I just thought you'd want to know before you go in there.
So you were acting for the light.
Hat on, hat off. Hat on, hat off. And there's a couple of scenes where the hat head that I've got going on is very kind of eraser head.
May I say, you look very attractive in this episode.
Go on.
You're like, keep it coming. You're like,
tell me more.
That never gets old. No, you do. You look very good. You look very, I don't know what was going on, but you look very good.
Yeah, what do you think was going on?
I don't know.
Well, we had a bomb squad is what we had. It was kind of a bottle show in the sense that we were really stuck on sets. There wasn't a lot of movement. Gibbs was with the guy with the bomb. Abby and McGee were sort of in the lab for a lot of the show, and Ducky goes up and talks to Jenny Shepard. And so I could see that it was structured to be probably a show that later on in the season they could save a little money on, maybe. But I think it ends up being, again, Obstacles, the Opportunity.
And by the way, I think it was a very good show. And most of the bottle shows that we did or that felt to us like bottle shows were actually really good shows. But I don't remember feeling like I was in everything. And I remember watching it and I was like, oh, remarkably, like we've been sprinkled really nicely. Like everyone was kind of doing their thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it probably felt like we were, and now looking back on it, you probably had a couple of days off.
Although, when you're at that school, you got to be there for the beginning outside of the school when we arrive. You got to be there. I was in the hallway for some stuff.
You were in the hallway a lot.
I had to go with Gibbs down the hallway. And I was going to say this before to you, but I found that there was some tonal experimentation happening.
You're talking about for DiNozzo?
With all the characters, I felt like...
But I felt like it was primarily your character because you were taking on this kind of like, I'm going to be the boss and and I love that bit between you and Gibbs, by the way, where he's on the in the room and you're like, you say something to him and...
Yeah, he calls me boss and I'm like, absolutely, Agent Gibbs.
Yeah.
Yes, I think there are probably about 10 episodes that I could name. It's like one of our little games, but I could name episodes where that dynamic really plays strongly, where you see how stuck in Second Bananaville DiNozzo is, not just in the show or whatever, but like,
you know what, it's so funny because you talk about this a lot about like being stuck there and all of that.
No, I don't talk about it anymore, but back then I did.
No,
Back
I'm talking
then I
about
was
just
very
like
aware
the character, and I think you did such a good job at making Tony DiNozzo sort of be in control. As much as you find the joke and the thing and the banter and like it never ceases to amaze me that you find surprise. They're like, oh well, and then you break the character and you go back to being that kind of frat boy thing. But when you are in charge and when you are the boss, you put a lot of pressure. Meaning, like DiNozzo puts a lot of pressure on himself, and he tries to be this good boss. He tries to be really good. And
Yes.
And he is good. And that's the thing. He is good. He doesn't have to try. He's just good. And that's the thing that I'm always like, oh, I like that,
Yeah.
He's good.
That's good. Well, I appreciate everything you said, and I've done enough therapy to know that I should say thank you.
20 years later. Hi.
I know, if only. Cody, are you ready?
I am ready for this, actually.
All right. I would like to introduce someone who I think is one of the most impressive humans, personally and professionally, and also a very neighborly gal, because we were neighbors.
You're neighbors in Los Angeles, right?
Yes, that's correct. And we will get into that and everything else, including all the TV shows she's directed, like Westworld, Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, Walking Dead, Modern Family, Morning Show, you name it, she's done it. Most recently, Constellation, which of course is a big giant show that we're going to talk about. She is a self-confessed NCIS fan, and I would like to introduce, ladies and gentlemen, sound the trumpets, Michelle MacLaren.
Hi, you guys.
Wow.
Hi, Michelle.
It's so good to see you. Oh my gosh.
How are you?
I'm good.
Hi.
Hi.
How's the canyon?
We miss you. We miss you so much. I don't know, Cody, we knew, Michael and I were neighbors.
Oh, I know this. Of course, we actually did talk about it as we were presenting you.
Oh,
it's a great story, and it is, I think, a great place for us to begin because it's kind of how we began.
True.
and then we can kind of traipse through. We can actually, I think there's a lot of really fun stuff. How you first perceived me up in Mark Horowitz's office.
I would be happy to describe that. So
Yes.
I get this phone call saying, would you like to do an episode of NCIS? I said, I would love to. And I go to the NCIS offices for my first day, and I'm in Mark Horowitz's office, big, impressive office. I think lots of wood, if I remember. And I was waiting for Mark, and Michael walks in. And Michael is very sweet and very kind, and he starts pacing around the room, and in a very casual way starts asking me questions about my knowledge of NCIS. And I was on it like this. And he finally turns to me.
He was auditioning you.
He was auditioning to me, and he turns to me and goes, "Oh, you're a fan." And I go, "Oh, yes, I am." That's how I met Michael. But it was, I kind of had DiNozzo interviewing me when I was first day.
And now you had seen, I mean, obviously you had seen the show. Why did you start watching the show? What sort of grabbed you? Or
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, it was so long ago. I don't remember, but I found it.
Long ago.
Sorry.
It was so long ago.
It was so long ago. But it was really, the show was kind of in a form of escapism because I loved the characters and their relationships. And the actual stories, when it was one of the stories, so I did the X-Files many years ago, and we had two different types of stories. We had anthology stories, and then we had one-off stories. And you guys kind of do the same thing. You have the anthology stories that are part of the whole overarching story, and then you might have a one-off. For that episode, somebody, robs something or kills somebody or whatever. And but it's not necessarily part of the whole thing. And as I got more and more into the show and more into the anthology series, I really got into the characters. And in fact, recently I was brushing up just to remember a few things. So I was watching a few episodes, and I don't think I had seen the episode, the homage to Ducky, and I bawled my eyes out. I cried so hard. And then I watched the episode where DiNozzo thinks you're dead, and I wept. I know you're alive, and I wept. I mean, it was amazing. And I think, you know what? It's just years of watching these characters and wanting them to be together so bad. I'm so excited about your new show, you guys. Congratulations.
Can we talk about our dinner in New York?
I know.
This was like such an epic moment.
So that, for the people in podcast land to understand, this was 6 years ago, maybe?
Yeah.
This was 2017, maybe 2016. I mean, it was a while ago.
It was a while ago. Yeah.
Maybe
It was
8 years
a while
ago. And we were, we all gathered at Mamo down in Soho, across from the Soho Grand.
So good.
And give Mamo
So
a plug,
good.
one of my favorite places.
Delicious. Me too.
But the three of us got shattered over a beautiful dinner, and we were putting our heads together. And this was before John McNamara was involved.
Mm-hmm.
But this just shows you how long that was in a sort of gestation. It's like an elephant pregnancy. It's like 9 years or something.
We sat there going, you guys have to get back together. You have to. This incredible relationship and romance and epic love that has been torn apart for years has not been, we haven't got the payoff. I mean, I will say when Talia walks into the office, it's one of the greatest moments. And then when you get the text in the car from Tony and you're wondering, is he going to ever speak to me again? And it's Talia and she's saying hi to her mom. I mean, come on, you guys. It's like, it's the best setup ever. I'm so excited, and I can't wait.
I think it's going to be good. And I also want to talk about, and it's funny that you're talking about all the emotional stuff, because I know this about you, but also I know that you're a very mathematical director.
Mm-hmm.
You are somebody who is, you're very organized, very prepared. But talk to me a little bit about, I know this is a little bit of a gear change, but I feel like it kind of rides side by side with you as a woman, human, director, mom, friend. You kind of work on a binary thing where you're super emotional and plugged in, but you're also really like linear in a lot of ways.
Right. It's interesting. tend to do a lot of, I guess, muscular things. And I really love, I mean, everybody loves great character drama, but I also love action. And the way that I approach things that are, let's say there are heavy in action, my feeling is for a good action sequence, you always have to have a story within it. You always have to have a point of view. You always have to understand where you are. And so it's kind of like a mathematical problem. You have to deconstruct it to reconstruct it. You have to break it down into tiny pieces. So it becomes very mathematical in figuring out how to put it together. I mean, quite frankly, any scene is like that. But when I was first starting to direct, the best piece of advice that was given to me was always make sure the camera's telling the story. And I thought, oh my gosh, what does that mean? You know, and I really studied that, and I really started to understand subjective angles and objective angles. And when you start to break a scene down, you obviously want to keep the emotional perspective, but there's a practicality to it. There's a practicality of, you know, how you're going to efficiently, with the time that you have, to tell the story, and where's the best place to put the camera to hopefully evoke the emotion and the connection that the audience is going to have with the characters. So it does, it sounds mathematical, sounds non-emotional, but when I say that it's mathematical, it is how the practical way of how to put the pieces together to tell the story. But most of all, I think all of us as different types of artists have to let ourselves go, have to let our imaginations.
Well, you're talking about the structure. Right? You're talking about the structure.
Cody. Yeah.
And I do really truly believe that artists, I mean, some of them obviously have the structure, some don't have the structure, but I remember understanding what the structure was early on, and latching onto the structure when, of course, maybe the nerves would come in and all that stuff. Like, you'd latch onto that structure so that you could allow yourself a level of freedom, you know? So it's an interesting point. But I heard something, and forgive me for being a little intrusive or perhaps a little too curious, but last time we had this dinner, were you a mother?
No.
Oh my God. So that's the thing that jumped at me the most. May I ask how that has changed your life?
It's amazing.
Because I know that you had waited for that, and this was something that you were thinking deeply about.
Well, it's something I've always wanted. And, you know, for some of us, it's a hard thing for whatever reason to come about. So I've done it quite late in life, and it's the best thing I've ever done. And her name's Georgia, spelled Giorgia, because that means powerful woman. And she is a powerhouse. And we first went on location to Tijuana, Mexico, and she was 2 months old. And she goes everywhere with me, and she's amazing. It's awesome. I mean, it's a juggling act, you know, and it takes a village, as everybody knows. And but it's the greatest gift I've ever been given, and I love it. It's amazing. And believe it or not, she's a little director, and I'm not just saying that.
I wanted to talk about the great CV of Michelle MacLaren.
Yes.
And obviously you've had, you know, we're always lucky if we get to work on one great show, but at a certain point, it's not luck. You're so chock full of chocolate chips on that thing. It's like, I was wondering if you could go through, and I'll just ask you about a show, and you kind of give me your hot take memory or a kind of, you know, whatever it means to you or whatever. Is that cool?
Okay. Yeah, I'll give it a whirl.
X-Files.
Ooh, met Vince Gilligan, directed for the first time, and learned about point of view.
And I'm going off memory here. So Walking Dead.
Walking Dead. I didn't know what a graphic novel was, and loved the idea that it was a genre that you could really play in and be somewhat arched in, and really scare people. But actually, I want to tell you guys a quick story because it's kind of interesting about The Walking Dead. So I get called for an interview for The Walking Dead, and I had just started doing Breaking Bad. I didn't have a lot of credits to my name, and I didn't know what a graphic novel was. So I ran to the comic book store. I started reading this, and I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. And I go to a meeting with Frank Darabont and Gail Ann Hurd. I'm so intimidated and nervous, and Frank's got all these monster things around the office. And they go, what did you think? What do you think about The Walking Dead? And I said, well, I did the second episode after the pilot, the first episode after the pilot. So the show hadn't been out yet or anything. And so I'd only read the pilot. And I said, well, it reminds me of when, and I was just being, gut reaction. I said, it reminds me of when I was a little girl and our family would go to Hawaii for Christmas, and we'd go to the Honolulu Zoo, and we'd walk into the zoo and be walking down. There's different animals and whatnot. And there'd be a train car, like a cargo car, and you can't see around the front of it. You can just see the side of it. And there's a sign that says, in here is the most dangerous animal in the world. And you'd walk around and you'd look in, and there's a mirror. And I said, that's what The Walking Dead's about. And I got the job.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a really good
because
story.
It's really about what do humans do in extreme situations? How do we react in crisis? So that was a really big learning curve for me. And we got to do lots of really gross, interesting things. And again, I always want to try and make things grounded and real. So how do you do that when you've got zombies and guts everywhere and stuff? And if you approach it in the most grounded, real way, you get to take people on that journey.
Sure. Was Westworld similar in that way, where it's very much the mirror of humanity? Very
much so. And Westworld was super cool because, again, now you're thinking futuristic, right? You're thinking, what if AI takes over? What if one of the three of us isn't real? You're thinking out of the box. One of my favorite shots there was one of the actors was two favorite shots, was walking down this hallway, and as they went down the hallway, they were jumping between realities. And I said, you know what? Why don't they're looking through a glass into separate rooms, and there's different things happening in the room. Why don't we put a camera on the other side of the glass, take the wall out, and we'll build these little vignettes of action that are happening. And the way that we'll transfer from one reality to the other is just the wipe of the post. So it's the camera looks like it's continuous, but actually we're cutting as we're wiping between the posts of the wall. So it's very, very simple, very, very grounded, but super effective and I've used, whenever I can, I try to go as grounded and as real as possible. And I've been able to play in a lot of different genres, but I always try to do that. I always try to keep it as real. Vince Gilligan said to me once, what would you do? What would this character do in this situation? So no matter how fantastical it is, I try to ground it and make it real and go, okay, well, how would I react if a dragon came at me? How would I react if I'm changing realities? What would that look like to me or to you or to the average person? And how would that make me feel? So being able to play in all these different genres is great, but I always try to bring it back to reality, even though it's not always reality.
Right. That reminded me that the invisible cut, you remember on our show, Billy Webb, the director of photography.
Love him. Mm-hmm.
So great Steadicam operator. So
yeah, brilliant.
It was Mark Harmon. I wasn't in the scene. I was in the interrogation observation watching this scene.
Yeah.
But it was a montage of Harmon interrogating five different young, Marine Corps guys, Navy guys. And it was supposed to be, like cuts, done in cuts. So, but everyone came in the rehearsal process, as you know, and we were all there. And then on the fly, they just said, Billy Webb was like, what if we just keep going around the table? And when we're on Harmon, that actor gets up and the other actor sits in. So when we come back around on the next actor, the cut, you never cut. But there's a new kid in front of Harmon. And then now we're on his coverage going behind Harmon's head. And then awesome. we get into a hard profile just at the end. And I mean, it still makes I get goosebumps because it's the kind of thing that you find at 7:00 in the morning.
Sure.
And it becomes like and then all of a sudden what would happen is you have Johnny O holding on to Billy's rig, the steady rig, and guiding him so he doesn't bump into walls and tables. But all the other actors, the other 4 actors, it's like 10 little Indians.
Yeah.
We're all going around. They were all going around in the room behind Johnny O'Grady and holding on. They were each holding on to each other so that they wouldn't make any noise, and everyone was committed. Everyone was plugged in.
It's the best.
And
it's
you're
the
just
coolest
like,
thing. Yeah.
It's the best. And it's so fun. It's real. And it worked. Great.
My memory of you, one of my memories of you on the set of NCIS was with your handheld monitor running down like, we had to like jump over a fence. Cody, you and I had to do some sort
Remember
of crazy.
they hired that really fantastic guy who was doing all of that stuff where he had to jump and jump and jump.
It was so fun.
Federal agents, stop! Oh, this guy's moving.
Yeah.
But you were so athletic, and I remember Billy Webb watching you and going like, I don't think we've ever had a director this athletic. Because Tom Wright was not.
We had to run, Michelle, and you made us run. And I remember being like, oh my God. And Michael was like, I'm going to outrun you, Cody. And I was like trying to keep up with Michael. And so of course, we've always had this thing where it's like, I'm going to run faster. I am now. I am. And so, but I remember being exhausted from those run sequences because I think we shot them for a little bit, but it wasn't like a short run either. It was like, by the time you did it was a long bit of running.
Right, through a construction site. And I actually watched it again the other day, and I was laughing because you actually say, you're out front, and Michael's coming up behind you, and you go, I think it was you, Cody, goes, oh, he's fast. And Michael's like, he sure is. And I was like, did they ad-lib that? Because I don't remember.
Oh, I'm sure. There was a lot of that in our show. There was a lot of that. And I do remember you had us on that great set, and it was the first time I felt on NCIS that, because you did like a big, wide master, and I felt like I was in the theater, usually like things were a little bit more, I don't know, they were a little bit more personal. The camera was a little bit here. Like you wanted this sort of like giant master shot. And I remember thinking like, wow. And you wanted the entire scene to play, like the entire thing to play. And I was like, all right, here we go, and it was very interesting.
Was it the construction site shot scene that we did that on?
It was an inside where we.
I remember that. Yeah. I
think we were inside the house. I think.
Oh, in there. Okay.
So I'm going to return to my investigation of Michelle MacLaren's CV.
No, wait, can I ask one question?
Oh, yes.
Game of Thrones.
Yes, that's where I'm going.
So Game of Thrones, I got to do a bear fight, which is amazing.
Which is similar to working with me and Cody.
A little bit,
Wow.
No, come on. The sparks between you guys is so awesome. The Game of Thrones was the biggest visual effects I had ever done, biggest sets I had ever done. First week I walked on to the stages, my jaw, was just hanging down.
Where were you shooting, by the way? Because Game of Thrones were shot.
We were
was shot
based
everywhere.
in Belfast, and on the episodes I did, we went to. So we were in Northern Ireland all around, and then we were in Iceland and in Morocco, and it was insane. It was amazing. I was just recently in Morocco again for the show that I just did, and I love shooting in Morocco. It's fantastic. The Game of Thrones, I love to shoot, and it's what kind of what you were just saying, Cody, about that shot that I did. I love to shoot things in a cinematic manner, and I love to give an audience a sense of geography. And so often, I won't always do a big master, but often I think if I remember, it was kind of up high. And the thing about it is, if you are intimate with your characters and then you jump out wide and give your audience a sense of geography, it puts them back into the scene, or can say something about the scene, whether they're lonely or excited, or it's a beautiful place, a sad place, whatever. When you go to real locations like Morocco, Iceland, I was just in northern Finland as well, you get to look 360, and it's like shooting in New York City. If as long as you're not doing a period piece, you get to look 360, and it's just everywhere you look is fantastic, and it's amazing, and it gives it a very cinematic scope to it.
So when you talk about period, you did The Deuce in New York City. See how I'm going through your CV?
Yeah, wow.
I was born in New York City, and in 1968, and I remember New York in the 70s, and I played guitar in the subways in the 80s, and I absolutely remember that New York. So New York for the Deuce is totally different than the morning show New York, because that's modern.
Well, the Deuce, I took a deep dive into the 70s, and HBO at the time was shooting vinyl, and they said, Michelle, just don't let it look like vinyl. So I actually never watched vinyl, but vinyl was Scorsese. Mm-hmm. And of course I watched, Taxi. I watched all this.
Mean Streets, Taxi Driver, right?
And so one of my greatest influences was Scorsese, and I'm like, oh boy, I hope it's different. And apparently it was very different. So I took a very deep dive into 1970s New York, and we tried to make it as accurate as possible. And we had an amazing crew and art department and cinematographer and everything. The morning show, of course, is modern day and very, very high end, complete opposite. I mean,
that's my favorite. That's my favorite kind of stuff to shoot, where they're like, so Michael, we're going to need you to be in this Tom Ford suit that's totally bespoke and perfect. And you'll be going out to the private air terminal to get on a G650. That will be the morning. And then we're going to take you over, and you'll be drinking champagne in the most elegant restaurant in New York. Yeah. I never hate those. I don't hate those.
Do you know, I did something on NCIS with you guys that I've always wanted to do. And it's long enough after nothing happened. So it's okay, I can tell this, but I drove the Aston Martin. So we had this Aston Martin on set.
Oh my God, that was
so like
funny.
Super expensive. And they weren't allowed to put any grip equipment on it or anything. And the Teamsters knew how much I loved this car. And one of them said, hey, Michelle, can you, we were on the Universal lot, can you drive it around a little bit for us and bring it around? And I was like, yeah, I can. And I never do stuff like that.
Yeah, I can.
Well, that's your inner Breaking Bad. And so I'll finish asking you about your epic CV with, I think, probably the show that was, if X-Files broke, you made your bones in the DGA, so to speak. It feels like Breaking Bad was that show that really put you into a place, not just where you're perceived a certain way, but where you developed a kind of confidence about things. Is that fair to say?
It's totally fair to say. I was a producer for a long time before I became a director. When I went into Breaking Bad, I was a producer who happened to direct. When I came out of Breaking Bad, I was a director, and people would go, oh, you produce? And it would just crack me up, because that's what I did for so long before I became a director. And I was so fortunate. And Breaking Bad, it changed my life. It changed my career. And it's where I learned, in season 3, I was directing an episode called 1 Minute. And I got this script, Tom Schnells wrote it, and it was truly the best thing that I'd ever read. And I thought, oh my gosh, Michelle, don't mess this up. You got to go for it. Just get out of your comfort zone and go for it. And we shot it. And I really went for it. I mean, really crossed that imaginary line. And we cut it together, and I thought, oh man, people are going to think I've gone too far. This is too much. I don't know what's going to happen. And not in my wildest dreams did I know what was going to happen, which was the show, started to take off. I got nominated for the first time for that episode. And it made me realize, oh, I have to go to that place. I have to get out of that comfort zone. I have to take those risks to truly, do what we do. So it was, Breaking Bad was, and also Vince Gilligan's amazing. The whole team was amazing. The scripts were phenomenal. The cast is fantastic. And we were experimenting. We were always experimenting, and it was, and Vince would say, do whatever you want. Just make sure you're telling the story. So there's actually a lot of different styles in Breaking Bad, but I love old Westerns. And so to me, Breaking Bad was a modern day Western. And I really got to learn so much.
We're going to have Matt Jones on our show, because Matt was
Dorney.
Dornigan. He was a recurring character on NCIS and totally different than the Breaking Bad situation.
Completely.
But Matt Jones has one of the great speaking voices of all time.
In fact, we thought it was a little fake when he came on. We were like, are you serious? Like,
are you putting that on? Yeah.
Are you putting that on? Like,
He's not. That's the real Matt Jones. Dorny.
Love it.
Well, we only have 3 hours, so our time is up.
So, but by the way, we could stay here forever.
Yes, we
guys,
could. I know.
I think you're shooting in Europe, right?
Yes, we are.
Have you guys shot in Europe before? It's the greatest thing. Because first of all, you work 10-hour days.
I did a movie in Germany a long time ago. And, but yes, we are doing French hours. I think we have,
that's what you're talking about, right, Michelle? You're talking about the 10-hour days.
It's the best thing ever. Yeah.
And we have the Canary Islands and Hungary and some extraordinary other places, perhaps. And when you take characters off of a show like the Ziva and the Donoso, the audience expectation is, well, we find a dead body, we investigate the clues, we watch the witty banter, there's a little bit of silver lining of but what we're doing now is we're taking Tony and Ziva, putting them in a sort of catastrophic save the world and themselves and their daughter situation. And so it's a really great challenge mathematically as well as emotionally, because we need to make sure the audience recognizes the stories that they have in their hearts and in their memories. Yeah. But we also want to take them like, hey, come here. We're going to show you this brand new world. And it's going to be really cool.
It has nothing to do with the agency, which is something that we always wanted. Michael and I always wanted to sort of explore the characters, but not be a part of the, the structure, not be a part of that structure. And we have an emotional structure, which will be, infused by all of these heavy, epic challenges, but we won't have the other stuff.
You guys, I'm so happy for you. I'm so sad I'm not going to be with you. I am seething with jealousy, and I just hope, I know it's going to be amazing, and I cannot wait to see it. It's
this is just season 1.
Yeah,
well, that's what I was going to say. There's no point in, you never know. You never know.
No, I just meant it for the first episode.
I know. The beginning is the beginning, but if anybody wants to send an email to offduty@spotify.com and let everybody know how much they feel Michelle MacLaren should be involved, you can also send it to Apple. All right. Well, Michelle, you are just amazing.
This was awesome.
The very first day where you came over to the Donoso desk on the set and said, are you buying a house next door to my house? And so it turned out you and I were neighbors for quite a few years, and I love all of your neighbors so much. And so I miss you guys, and I look forward to seeing you again.
We miss you guys. We miss you. Give my love to Boyana and the kids. And we miss you guys. And I love you guys. It's so great to see you, and have the best time. I know you will. And hopefully I'll see you down the road.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah.
Cote de Pablo.
How good was that?
I am better for knowing Michelle MacLaren. I feel
Cherie,
fortunate.
I feel like you feel very lucky about like the friends that you know and the people that are in your life. That's a pretty good place to be in. Do you wanna play a little game time? This one's gonna be a little game called Who Done It?
Who Done It?
Michael and Cote guess which NCIS actor's trivia page the following facts are from.
Okay, wait. So what you're saying is you're going to give us a clue, and then you and I have to guess who in real life this person is. Not the character on the show, but in real life. Like the actor from NCIS. Okay. Yes. All right. What's the first question?
All right. So risked their life to save 2 teenage boys who were involved in a car accident outside of their home.
Marcus Harmonious.
Marcus Harmon.
Okay. Can I read the second one?
Yes.
Had an intense fear of heights.
Who?
David McCallum, I'm hearing. Well, I never would have guessed that.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
I always thought he was like an owl, like he would soar high.
Was married to Jim Carrey for a year.
Lauren Holly.
We know that, Lauren Holly.
Yes.
Suffers from severe phobia of magicians and conventional ovens. Polly Perrette. Polly Perrette. That's a Polly Perrette special.
I know, but don't, everybody out there in podcast land, don't take that upon yourself now to just go and dress up like a magician.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
This one's kind of an easy one, but they listened to electronic music and cited Apex Twins and Drex. Oh God, do you know this name? Do you know how to pronounce that name?
Drixlexia. It's Rocky Carroll.
No, Sean Murray.
Yeah, it's Sean.
Is it Sean Murray? It's Sean Murray, right?
Who's a 7 handicap golfer?
Brian
Dietzen. Yeah. All right. I just thought I'd throw Brian a bone. So
what about what I want one of you?
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Who
used to have a little cat named Kitty Cat?
Yeah. Let's see. Hold
Weatherly.
on. Who is a junior in real life and on the show NCIS?
Michael Weatherly.
Michael Weatherly Jr. Anthony Donoso Jr. See what I did there? I was like, yeah.
There you go, kid.
Cote de Pablo, it's time for fan questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay.
Dan from Michigan.
What's up with Abby and McGee hitting each other so much this episode? Are they flirting?
I think they're flirting.
Is that what's going on there?
What do you think?
I did notice that there was a lot of contact there. And I wonder if that was it written or was it maybe something that Paulie and Sean were sort of cooking up?
Well, that'd be a really interesting question for them because I thought it was written. And I also thought that they were toying around with the idea of like, well, of course, this person's disturbed because, I mean, look at them. They've got skulls and they listen to death metal. And all of a sudden it's like Abby feels very identified by this. She's
threatened. And then McGee is the geek who was the probie, who's the noob who gets teased and he gets prodded and teased and maybe bullied a little bit, which,
certainly by Donoso a little bit. Yeah.
And school shooters can sometimes be bullied a little bit. So both of those things, I don't know. I'm not going to read into it. Kelly from Alabama, the boy playing Cody was really good. Do you know what happened to him?
You know what? He is actually, I was just thinking the same thing when I was watching the episode today. I thought, what a terrific actor. I mean, he was truly very committed. And actually, his name is Michael Welch. And he went on to play in the Twilight movies. Yeah. So I think he did pretty well.
So, wow, this guy worked a lot. I'm going all the way back. This guy's like, he's older than Mark Harmon. Wow, look at this. Okay. Frasier, 1998.
Oh my God.
I mean, hello?
He was a child actor, obviously.
Veronica's Closet, Chicago Hope, which had the Mark Harmonious on it.
Sure.
So he probably worked with Mark Harmon there. Star Trek Insurrection, Two Guys, a Girl in a Pizza Place with Ryan Reynolds and Nathan Fillion. Seventh Heaven, Walker, Texas Ranger, the original.
I mean, he obviously has a career and he was very good in the show. And hey, what about the next question, Bruno from Hawaii?
What's the biggest difference between your characters and your real life selves? I'm just really curious about your answer.
I'm certainly not into weapons. I'm certainly not going to fight anyone. She's very comfortable with, for example, especially, in season 3, sort of toying around with the idea that she's been with women and she's been with men and all that stuff. And that was
Wait a minute.
certainly
Did I miss
more.
That part?
Yes, of course. I mean, it was like written in the beginning. It was always this sort of like innuendo that she was like, oh, women. And, and by the way, Tony, he loved that. So he definitely clocked it. But did you see how much that changed after season 3? Like it was never really talked about again. And I'm not sure if that was really real or if it was just something that she was playing to make people uncomfortable.
I'm curious myself.
That smile, Michael. That smile.
When I just think about the distinction, I think I'm much farther away from that season 3 version of me and that character just because it's so long ago. And I appreciate him. I am very glad that he did all that work for me. Now, what a hardworking young boy he was, and living up there in Santa Clarita, chopping wood, making lots of television. can I just give you the Gibbs rule for this episode?
Yes.
Rule of the day, number 35. Always watch the watchers.
Okay. This is an interesting thing because in the last couple of episodes, you and I have gotten really deep on the Gibbs rules. What does this one mean for you? Is it just a simple, straightforward, like, hey, always watch the watchers, that's it? Like, watch the people that are watching, watch the people that observe too much? What does it mean to
when
you?
you watch the watchers, it's because the perpetrator of a crime may have fled the crime, but now they're in the group watching the investigation of the crime. So you might find your bad guy in the watchers.
Could it be always, well, for me, it was always about, like, watch the quiet guys. Like, it was always about, like, you know, always watch the quiet ones because they, first of all, they ain't so quiet and
no
they're
need to watch me
hiding
then.
a little.
You ignore the talkers. Just like, oh, that guy. If you want to watch episodes of NCIS, you can go to Paramount Plus, or you can just turn on your TV. Or if you want to watch new episodes of NCIS and others, you can go and watch them over on CBS television.
Sure can.
Or if you're listening to this Spotify broadcast internationally, you can just Google it and say, hey, I live in Amsterdam. How can I watch NCIS?
Because chances are you'll find it anywhere in the world.
All right. Well, we've had a lot of fun today, but next week on Off Duty, while playing on a frozen pond, two brothers discover a dead Marine underneath the ice. While processing the scene, the NCIS team discovers the bodies of 3 dead gang members. The plot thickens when the team realizes this could be connected to the gang accidentally killing another Marine a year prior. Does the plot ever not thicken? Just saying. It's season 3, episode 19. Ice, stay with us. Foof!
Oh my God, you almost made it. I mean, you probably almost died, but you did it in one breath.
Well, I got allergies.
Can you do it again?
Okay.
Take a bigger breath. Bigger breath.
We'll see you next week on Off Duty. I'm Michael Weatherly.
And I'm Cody DePablo.
And this is
Say yes.
Off Duty.